It's true, if every citizen in Outer East Portland registered and voted, we would be electing our next mayor. And remember, we have 3 of the leading candidates here. These are 3 of 22, I believe, candidates running. Do we have any other mayoral candidates in the room? Please stand up. Wave to everyone. And talk to them on the way back. As you know, as editor and janitor of East Portland News, we don't endorse any candidates, nor does the Parkrose Business Association. But we do thoroughly endorse anyone who is qualified to vote to register and do so. Voting can help you elect a mayor. It can help you have the opportunity to chime in on ballot measures. But more than that, high turnout precincts tend to get more attention than do the other precincts. So let's get right to it and have our candidates introduce themselves. You will have 3 minutes. Our timekeeper has the yellow card for 30 seconds. Right, Gail? Show them the yellow card. And when time's up, please stop on the red card. Now, the order that we're going to establish is we're going to start at the end of the table, and that means Jefferson Smith, you go first, and welcome Jefferson Smith.
I'm Jefferson Smith, and I'm running for mayor because I'm going to step out away from this because I can't see anybody in the back row. Because this is my hometown and I want to make it better. I represent East Portland in the State House. I grew up in Irvington. My wife grew up in East Portland. I live in the David Douglas School District. I went to Grant and to Beaumont. If elected, I'd be the first mayor in the history of the city elected east of 82nd Avenue. And I'll get back to that in a moment. I'm running because I think we can get our city working. I was named the 2011 Small Business Champion for the work that we're doing to pivot some of our economic development attention. I'm just trying to attract out-of-state businesses to what we can do to help grow homegrown businesses. To make the city work better, a commitment to good government. I pitch and help pass state budget transparency to put the state budget online. I carried House Bill 2020 to trim middle management in state government. I think there's ways we can save money in Portland to make sure we're spending our money on our key priorities. And I'm running for mayor because we've got to make the city work for more people. When I was at Grant, Grant was 1,650 students, David Douglas about the same size. Now, Grant is still that size, David Douglas is about double. Back then, 30 to 50% of the students were on free reduced price lunch in that district. Now it's 80%. Parkrose has seen roughly similar changes. My friend Brian, who's here, is former student body president at Parkrose High School. And what's happened in East Portland over the last 30 years has been, first of all, a bunch of big promises followed by a pattern of neglect. And I am running for, by the way, I think we now, because of this forum, are having as many joint appearances in East Portland as we will have had already at the Mac Club, right, which we had this morning. Right? Not in downtown, we've had more downtown, but just we're now tied with the Mac Club, I think. Maybe we've had one more out here. We saw $11 million spent on subsidized loans by the city of Portland, 0 in Parkrose, 0 David Douglas, 0 Centennial, 0 to Reynolds. That's over a third of the students in the city of Portland they weren't asked to apply. When the city of Portland was applying stimulus dollars, although 27% of the population is living east of 82nd Avenue, only 1.5% went east of 82nd Avenue. Only 3.3% of transportation dollars. Talking about East Portland is an easy thing to do on the campaign trail. Making sure we're actually of this community, working with this community, and actually trying to change the trajectory of this community by changing the power dynamic in City Hall is something we have a rare chance at this time. I don't have much of a chance if I don't have your help. So I need your help. We need to get East Portland more power in the city. I need your help to be Mayor of Portland. Thanks very much.
Introducing Eileen Brady.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And I'm pleased that we got the chance to be out here. I just want to say the Parkrose Centennial Parade was an absolute blast. And I love the high school team, the high school football team who I got to meet and take photos with when I was here. I was also principal for a day at the Parkrose Middle School. I'm a hands-on leader. I want to be out in the community. I will be out in the community. I have been during the campaign. I will be in my administration. I love Portland. I think Portland is a great place to live. I think it can be a really tough place to find a job, make a living, or do business. And we have to commit to realizing that if we want a livable city, if we want memorable parks, if we want a regional transit system that is spectacular, we have to build the economic infrastructure to support that. That means neighborhood-based businesses, that means recruiting mid-sized businesses, that means adding a few larger-sized businesses to this community so that we can support all of the things that we hold dear, including our schools, so that we have the tax base to support the programs that are important to us. I've worked in 5 landmark Portland organizations in the last 25 years in leadership roles. Nature's, New Seasons Market, EcoTrust, Zanger Farm, and currently I'm the board chair of the green coupon guide called the Chinook Book. I've spent many years building organizations that have proved that you can have both a sustainable ethic and build a strong job base. I always say that I think there's a myth here that you can't have both. And we have to break through that myth, commit to growing jobs, and commit to growing the opportunities for our communities. I am focused on 4 key priorities for this race. Job development, number 1. I bring my entrepreneurial and coalition background to that task. Secondly, we have to transform our public safety system. We've just had the 36th gang-related shooting in 2012, which is up from last year, which was a banner year last year. We have to do something about that. We deserve to have a 21st century school system. Hats off to the Parkrose folks that were able to pass that bond. Whoever those 6 votes were, we applaud them. Fourth, we have to have a responsible, affordable set of city services that are delivered to our businesses and to our families. When I served on the Mount Tabor Independent Review Panel in 2004, I said then what I say now: we do not need to spend $400 million of ratepayer money to cover some of the purest drinking water in the country. I look forward to our conversation today. Thank you for having us.
Introducing candidate Charlie Hales.
Well, thank you for having us here. This is great to have some civic dialogue with business people who put a lot of effort into this part of the community. I'm Charlie Hales, and I'm running for mayor because our city needs leadership. Leadership that can actually get things done in City Hall, not just talk about what should be done. The Oregonian highlighted that in their endorsement editorial, and there'll be copies in the back if you haven't seen it, when they said, that we're a great city, but Portland seems adrift as a city government, floating along with high unemployment, letting streets go to potholes, watching business drift out of downtown. The Times, they said, demand a strong, effective, fully prepared mayor. That's why they endorsed me. My opponents bring strong resumes to this contest, one from the public sector and the other from the private sector. But in my case, I've spent 20 years in the private sector and 10 years working in our weird, sometimes dysfunctional, difficult city form of government, and gotten a lot of things done. Some of you have worked with me on some of those things, like Airport Light Rail, a project that I'm very proud of, that I helped put that together. We got it done 10 years ahead of schedule, no federal money, no general taxpayer dollars, and we did it for less than they've spent planning the Columbia River crossing. I'm very proud of the work that I did in parks, where we passed the first park bond measure, built the East Portland Community Center and 3 neighborhood parks in East Portland. We have a lot more to do. And I'm proud of what I did for schools, because when we were in the previous funding crisis, or one of them I should say, because we've had a whole series of them since Measure 5, I was in the leadership team along with Mayor Katz that made a very controversial decision to make direct grants from the city of Portland to the school districts to get us through an emergency. And I was the one that insisted that those grants ought to go to Parkrose, David Douglas, Reynolds, and Centennial, as well as to Portland Public. So those are the kinds of leadership qualities that I think we need in a mayor, and I believe I'll bring them. There's some issues that we need to address. Yes, the economy. The city can do more to be a better partner for business. Let's look at our permit process and make one that works properly out of the dysfunctional and disconnected mess that we have today. Let's look at our systems development charges, which are so high that they're stopping a lot of projects from starting. Let's look at our water and sewer rates, top to bottom, and make sure we're spending the money on water and sewer. Let's again be a great partner for public schools, because if without great public schools across this city, all the other things that we care about are at risk. And then let's attend to our basic services. When I was in charge of transportation in this city, we had half the budget that they have today and repaved 5 times as many lane miles of streets every summer. I've knocked on 20,000 doors in this campaign, and I've heard again and again, people want us to attend to basic services. Yes, we're a great city. We should still dream great dreams, but we should get the basics right first. Thank you very much, and I look forward to this discussion, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. By the way, I'm also the official photographer for the Parkrose Business Association. That's why I'm stepping out and taking your photographs. That's what's going on there. Now, the members of the Parkrose Business Association and the Board of Directors have selected 3 questions to be answered by each of you. Please keep your answer to 2 minutes. These are 2-minute answer questions, and we're going to be starting out with Eileen Brady, then it'll go to Charlie Hales, and then Jefferson Smith. Now, this question may be longer than your answer, but I'm here to do it as they've asked. But it's a very interesting question, and I didn't know some of this information. Someone did some research, and they said, the city of Portland, while reportedly spending $900,000 to build 13.5 miles of bike routes, $665,000 to add 8 permanent employees to oversee streetcars, $200,000 for Rose Festival preparation work, and providing a $15,000 scholarship to the Ralvolution in Los Angeles. The question's coming. The Portland Transportation Bureau has put off plans to overhaul deteriorating roads and its 5,000-mile system until at least 2017. As mayor, do you plan to reverse this policy by spending more on road repair throughout the city before 2017? If not, why not? Ms. Brady?
It's inconceivable to me that we have a transportation bureau that has announced we are not going to pave key roads over the next several years. What is the Transportation Bureau actually for? We have to focus more on maintenance and safety. As my father always said, 80% of success in life is maintenance. And we have overcommitted to too many new shiny projects without having a maintenance fund. We have not committed to building the capital structure to actually maintain our assets. We're so focused on new things. So we will commit to building a capital-based budget, which really should have been done 10, 15 years ago. If we had, we may have gotten more sidewalks installed and paved more roads in East Portland, which has suffered dramatically. We also we commit to projects that we can't operate. So we have a streetcar that has gone on the east side of the river now, and we built it, but we did not budget for the operating costs. Believe it or not, we're going to spend somewhere between $1 million to $3 million of Transportation Bureau money actually operating the new version, the new part of the streetcar, because we hadn't planned the operating costs. We have to, what I bring to this race is a business orientation that says we have got to be able to actually balance the books. We can't just bet on the new projects. We have to build in the operating costs. We have to build in the maintenance costs, and we have to work for these livable programs out in East Portland. In East Portland, you have a legitimate complaint about not getting the services you need from the city. One of the great things about this race is that actually all of us are talking about East Portland. And there's a real opportunity to put transportation in East Portland on the map. Take it.
I've been very involved, as I mentioned, with Airport Max in creating the transportation system that we have today, and I'm really proud of it. It's given us a better city, we're more livable, and those projects paid off, particularly Airport Max with the whole Cascade Station development in terms of new development, jobs, and prosperity. So those projects, I think, are having lasting value for the city. And as much as I believe in those projects and believe in that agenda, there is agreement here that maintenance, as I mentioned, has got to be job one. Again, we did 5 times as many lane miles of streets every year when I had the Bureau, and they had half the budget. So that's a matter of setting priorities and not getting distracted by pet projects and not trying to do things with transportation money that don't have anything to do with transportation. And then secondly, on the street issue, yes, there are 60 miles of unpaved streets in this city, a lot of them in East Portland, not exclusively in East Portland. There's southwest and southeast. Look, get a block off of Woodstock in southeast and you'll see what I mean. So this is a problem across the city, and the city's been depending on a dysfunctional tool, the local improvement district system to try to get those streets built. At the current rate of progress using LIDs, what these things are called, we'll get it all done in about 4,000 years because very few people can afford to build their own street after the fact. So we need to dump that idea, take this on as a long-term capital program, build it into the budget, be realistic with people that even with a better managed budget, it's going to take us 20 years at probably at a minimum to get that 60 miles of streets done. But make a commitment to it, build it into the base budget, stick to it, don't get distracted by other things, don't spend water, sewer, or transportation funds, which are enterprise funds, on things that should be paid for or compete for the general fund.
And Mr. Smith.
We have a beat.
I just started. I'll do it for some.
Thanks, buddy. Is that your beat? It's impressive. So agree maintenance first, particularly that kind of maintenance that if not done, it's much more expensive going forward. But let's have some perspective on reality. So it is not just because of Sam Adams, who I've had pretty public debates with, and pretty public disagreements with about resource distribution, about failure to provide adequate resources fairly across the city. But it actually isn't Sam Adams' fault that the state transportation package, I was one of the few Democrats in the state house to vote against the gas tax increase because I knew what it was doing, what it wasn't going to do, not only for our part of town, but for our town generally. But it's not his fault that that was projected to provide $300 million, now it's $160 million. So we're going to have to find ways to save money. And that means not only talking about being careful with big projects, but in fact one of the distinctions in this race is that I'm applying that discipline. That I'm not saying build baby build on the Columbia River Crossing, I'm not saying it on the Sustainability Center, I am saying trim middle management, I am looking for other ways to even pave roads more cheaply. And even if there's a way to get 60 miles of unpaved roads to be other things than just roads that require sidewalks and are $1 million a mile. So I think there's ways we've got to analyze it so we can find ways to save money. We're also going to have to come to grips with how can we think about a set of revenue structures that keeps up with reality. Right now, gas tax revenues are not keeping track with with transportation needs, and part of that is because seniors are driving less. So we've got to figure out how to allow for shorter trips, how to plan the whole city. And is that my sign for done or 30 seconds?
That's 30 seconds.
Thanks. So is seeing the whole picture. Because just about every election, so people come around talk about East Portland, just about every election. But then the problem is, once they get in there, they're thinking more about downtown businesses and a little bit less about Parkrose businesses. So we got to make sure it's actually time to distribute resources, that our neighbors are in our ear and not only today.
Thank you very much. Next question will go with Mr. Hale starting. It seems that our water and sewer bills have become the new property tax. Continuing rate increases place both business owners and residents in financial jeopardy. What will you do to reduce the amount of water and sewer rates? If you won't do anything, why not?
Well, yeah, I mentioned this, and I'll talk a little bit more about some other aspects of it. Clearly, we've got to go through the rates line by line. This has really not been done effectively in the last several years across the board in the city budget. Mayor Katz, who I'm proud has endorsed me, was the last real effective budgeting mayor that we've had. And it shows, not just in the water and sewer rates, I think, but in other failures of discipline, as Jefferson said, in the budget process. So first we go through the line items and we look at every cost. We make sure that the capital program is reasonable and as modest as we can keep it while still keeping up with the needs of a long-term system that's been around for 100 years and going to be around for many more. Secondly, another real big issue for the city is, let's say we have, to put it politely, we have frayed relationships with our suburban neighbors at the moment. And some of them buy water from us in very large quantities through wholesale contracts. If we don't repair those relationships with the Tualatin Valley Water District and some of the other water districts that buy water from us, we'll have another rate shock coming. And then third, on the sewer side, we have this very large combined sewer overflow obligation that's now actually starting to diminish in terms of its effect on rates. You know, it's huge. It was $1.4 billion. So we're going to be paying that off for a while yet, no matter who's in office. But we need to look very carefully and do a responsible job of it, but make sure that the cost of cleaning up the Portland Harbor, Portland will have part of that cost, doesn't cause another huge rate shock. So there are things that we need to do to avoid further increases, and we need to go through every line item to make sure that we're spending money appropriately, and then not use water money as an ATM to build a Rose Festival headquarters, which the current council did.
Mr. Smith is next.
I'm sorry, this is the.
No, it's fine. You're doing great, man. It's fantastic. I appreciate it.
You got a client on behalf of.
No, I just don't want to interfere with the music.
We may not be high-tech, but we are fair.
You have to understand. You have to understand where I live. This does not offend me at all, man. So one, yeah, some of that is just about operational discipline. I've said the thing about middle management, but I haven't explained what I mean, so let me do that. Because the Water Bureau is one of the ways, in fact, I just heard it at one of the now 76 house parties we've done around the city from a former employee of the Water Bureau, that according to the city auditor, right now, the staff management ratio in the city is 6-to-1. He's saying in the Water Bureau, Jeff, they're lying if they say it's 6-to-1. It's at best 3-to-1. I carried a bill on the State House floor to set an aspirational level of staff to management ratios at 11-to-1. We can save real money by doing a similar thing in the city. Second, we can improve rate review. I do believe there should be electoral accountability so you can vote people out of office if they raise your rates and don't have a good reason for it. But I think there should be better, more disciplined rate review before any rates can be increased. Third, I think we have to have line-by-line budget attention, as Charlie said. But to make my case a little bit, of people who've actually had to work on tough budgets during tough times when we were really cutting budgets. I've had to serve on the budget subcommittee that oversees the budget of the governor, the secretary of state, and the treasurer's office. I've had to spend real time cutting budgets and finding ways to save money over the last 4 years, and I absolutely agree that's going to be something we've got to do. Let me say something else, though. Sometimes we're going to have to find times where we say no to the federal government. Right now, the federal government is asking us to pay a bunch of money on treatment plants to clean up cryptosporidium we don't have. And so leveraging relationships, like Jeff Merkley, who I succeeded in the State House, leveraging relationships with state partners, both in agencies and in the legislature, to make sure that we get off the hook for otherwise having to pay for things we shouldn't have to pay for, is going to be something else the mayor's going to have the willingness and courage to do, and I'll do those things. So those are some of the ways that we can save a little bit of money.
And Ms. Brady.
So as I mentioned before, I sat on the independent review panel on whether or not to cover the reservoirs. Don't judge me by what I say, judge me by what I did. Back in 2004, when we were looking at a 9/11 terrorist fear factor, it was a bold and radical thing to do, is to sit on a panel, build a majority that then recommended that the city overturn its decision to cover the reservoirs. We did it then. I've stuck with it since. I've actually helped work to actually make sure that we got the waiver on the treatment plant, which we actually did get. And we're now still faced with covering the reservoirs. Let me tell you something. I would not have voted for the rate increase that was proposed last year, period. It included preparations for covering the reservoirs. They were anticipating that. I would have taken the risk that we will be able to move through the EPA process and actually get the waiver on the whole thing. Lastly, you think the rates are bad now. It's the Superfund harbor cleanup that has yet to come to everybody's attention. It is potentially a $500 million bill for the city of Portland that is going to probably be recommended to sit on the sewer rates side of this equation. The city has not stepped up and provided the leadership that's required to be part of this conversation. The city has stayed in the background. We have to provide the leadership, work with the industries, work with the environmentalists, work with the tribes, and work with the port so that we can actually have the most cost-effective approach with community consensus of cleaning up the river to the level that is most effective for all of us. But the city has to get involved. I've built unusual coalitions for many, many years. I'm not afraid of big, bold, complex issues, and this one is sitting right in front of us. In fact, I will assign this project to one of the commissioners Like you assign a bureau, this project is so significant and so consequential that it needs to be assigned to its own commissioner. Thank you, I hear the beep.
And thank you very much for delivering precise and concise answers. Yes, Mr. Smith will start first on our last question. And that is, when elected mayor of Portland, what will you do specifically to improve the business climate in Parkrose?
Several things. One of the most important things we have to do is making sure, as I mentioned briefly, resource distribution is done smartly. Occasionally there's federal dollars that PDC or the city distributes. Very often they're city dollars. I think we have to move beyond just mapping where we're deploying resources and making sure we're deploying them fairly. Making sure that, for instance, when we're doing that mapping and doing that analysis, we're not just counting dollar for dollar, but understanding that investment in a park or a road is different than investment in a gateway domestic violence shelter or in a methadone clinic. We have to make sure we are building livable neighborhoods and promoting economic diversity and not allowing merely economic segregation to segregate poverty in one pocket of the city, which is essentially what the city of Portland's been doing for the last 25 years. That's the most important thing we can do to improve the business climate in this neighborhood and in the set of neighborhoods that I represent already, that I represent currently in the legislature, because we need not only jobs here, we need customers. And we need an economic development plan beyond strip clubs and strip malls. We've got to figure out how to do that. Now, second, we can take a lesson from other cities, what they have done, and that is really help homegrown businesses. Again, not only by using tax breaks to attract out-of-state businesses, but helping homegrown businesses move through the permitting process, help make sure that they have, like I said, like either a concierge set of river pilot services within the city to help them move from bureau to bureau, desk to desk to get projects done. Make sure that we're not only thinking about the tax break offerings that downtown businesses are asking for, but thinking about the basics that the whole city needs, including this part of town. Third, we need to think about the kinds of projects we do. That means when PDC is making investments, we're doing the kind of neighborhood scale investments and not only big town developments. I'm a supporter of the recent moves to do the things a little more humble, like happened with Lilly Market, that has happened in Lentz, that has happened in other places, that have helped smaller businesses get what they need to grow. And we need those kind of neighborhood scale public works projects to go. And there's more. I could talk about this for a while.
Thank you, Ms. Brady.
Thank you. Just to be very specific quickly, I have committed to say that in my office, I will have an East Portland liaison. This person will be able to work with and be available to anybody in East Portland, but specifically help drive these programs through the city. Secondly, I'm a business person, and I can read a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet and what the forma is. I will be out recruiting businesses to this city every week. I'll be on the phone or on a plane if necessary. I will work, this will be one of my top priorities, is actually business recruitment. But what's important in there is really understanding what I call job math. There's different kinds of jobs that create multipliers, different kind of multipliers in communities. So in many of the communities, the neighborhoods in Parkrose, certainly, much of the business is local. There's a healthcare businesses, there's retail businesses, there's hospitality businesses. Those are important businesses. But from a job math perspective, every traded sector job you create that is a manufacturing job or is providing a service that brings money into a community and sends product out or services out creates 2.2 jobs. We need more traded sector businesses in Parkrose. If we want to actually see this economy churn, we need to do that. So I'll be focusing on traded sector businesses. Thirdly, the permitting system. I have suffered with this permitting system for 25 years, opening grocery stores, and I have the receding hairline to prove it. And we have to streamline this permitting system. We have to make it service-oriented. I think we have a job-delaying permitting system, and I will make it less costly and faster, simply, and less surprises in the whole project. So, looking forward to taking the Bureau of Development Services in my portfolio and really leading the charges on business and economic development for the city.
Mr. Hales.
5 things. First, and most important, listen. They're people that understand this community. Portland's a big, diverse place, lots of business districts, lots of neighborhoods, lots of differences from one part of the city to another. You know, it's important, and I know this about myself, to remember that you're not it's not the smartest person in the room. And that other people have good ideas. Bring that spirit and that humility to this important job. Secondly, the permit process. I've advocated that we specifically adopt one that some people in our Bureau of Development Services have actually done the homework on. And it's been used in Salt Lake, where I've seen it operate very effectively. It's entirely paperless. Plan sets go in as CAD files. Inspectors go out with iPads. All the inspection reports are in real time, and you can find them with a click of a mouse, not an unreturned phone call. So let's get the city modernized in terms of how it does its work. Then, you know, when we run for office, we're always talking about the things that need to be fixed, and there are some things, but there's some things that are working that we ought to keep. The Neighborhood Prosperity Initiative is one of them. There's some things that the city's doing in terms of partnership with neighborhoods that are this good. And this shift of the Portland Development Commission away from just a focus on big districts downtown to smaller districts in the neighborhood is a healthy thing. And I commend Mayor Adams and the current leadership of the Portland Development Commission for taking those steps. We need to continue those steps and keep going in that direction. And then finally, one way to keep the whole council mindful of the whole city is I'll take city council meetings around the city. Not all of them, but once a month we ought to get out of the building and have our city council meeting in Parkrose High School or David Douglas High School or Wilson High School. Move it around the city to where the people are at a time where people can get there. You know, rather than making people go downtown in the middle of the day from a long way away, let's bring the deliberation to where they live. And that won't by itself change it, but it will certainly remind us of who we're working for.
And as we move into the lightning round, as we like to call it, I do thank Gail Bash for being our timekeeper. You have to stay focused, you have to do it, and you had to work with my noisy timer. Thank you so much for helping out. Thank you all for your attention. This is your 60-second close. We're going to go in reverse order from when we started. Mr. Hales, you're up first. You have 60 seconds. You might want to include your website.
Okay, that first, charliehales.com. And there's also printed material on the back table there. Appreciate your interest, appreciate your attention. We've all talked a lot about issues and ideas. Let me tell you a little bit more about my private sector experience. I've spent the first part of my career, 10 years, working for a couple of different business organizations. First, the Hotel Motel Association used to represent this property and others around the state, dealing with government. Then I worked for the Home Builders Association. Then I did serve for 10 years in our particularly strange form of government where I got a lot done. The last 10 years I've been working for a national engineering and architecture firm called HDR. And I'm proud of that business success. We've grown that business from 2,700 employees to 8,000. Grew every year, including during the recession. We did it by practicing good, strong team leadership. And that's a trait that actually works very well in public leadership as well. And by understanding how the world works in terms of infrastructure. So I'll bring that private sector experience as well as public sector experience to the important responsibilities of this job. Thank you.
Ms. Brady.
I think Portland needs a mayor, but beyond more than that, we need a mayor for a new era. We need new leadership that understands that you can't just wish for having parks. You can't just wish to have a transportation system that paves roads. You have to have the economics behind it. You have to have the tax base to support those programs. So I started June 1st, kind of as an underdog candidate with a path to victory, and I have said the same thing in every group I've been in. We have to build the job base here, and as a result, I have built the broadest coalition of endorsers and supporters in this race. I not only have support from the most trade unions and in the race, I have the support of the Portland Business Alliance, I have the support of the leading environmental leaders in the state, and I have the Portland Green Party endorsement, the second endorsement to Cameron Whitten, actually. And I'm extraordinarily honored to be, I'm going to finish. I'm extraordinarily honored to have the breadth of support, and this morning I got the Tribune endorsement, and I encourage you to read it. Thank you so much for your time. I'd appreciate your vote and your support.
And Mr. Smith.
Thanks. You can see my commitment not only for what I'm saying in the context of this campaign, but what I've been working on for the last several years. I have the scars from my own fights with our current mayor over unfairness facing our part of the city. I have calluses on my feet from canvassing for the Parkrose school bond and not just for the Portland Public School bond. I have fought for small business in the legislature. I have on this campaign demonstrated fiscal responsibility that is going to be necessary as we're facing tough budget times, even when it's made it hard for some labor unions which otherwise would have supported me not to support me because I was unwilling to give them the boondoggle they wanted. I've also been willing to make this city and make the case that this city needs to work for the whole city. And I do it in every single living room I'm invited on both sides of the river. That the max line goes through the whole length of the city. That if gang activity festers anywhere, it impacts everywhere. That if we have an economic development plan that doesn't work for the whole city, the economy of the whole city, the tax base of the whole city won't work. I won't need an East County liaison. I will be that liaison. I'm running for mayor.
Thank you very much. Please, a big round of applause. I understand you have at least 50 joint appearances over 6 weeks. We certainly appreciate you making one of them here in Parkrose. Thank you all so much. And now the time everyone's been waiting for, the business card drawing, raffle prizes, and the 50-50 draw.